My name is Rob Hudson. I'm Tampa born, bred, and raised with deep roots in the community. And today we have something different and special for you. I'm here at the award-winning Big Ray's Fish Camp, a local favorite spot for Tampa's freshest and tastiest seafood. Founded by my good friend, Chef Nick Cruz, who spent most of his childhood fishing with his grandfather, something I can definitely relate to. Big Ray's is one of the few places in the area that still radiates a true Tampa vibe. Thanks for allowing us to come down here today, man, doing something a little different with the content that we're putting out. I really appreciate it, man. It's obvious that you're living the dream right now, doing really well with your baby, Big Ray's. Restaurant ownership is a dream for a lot of people, but most don't execute and make their dream into a reality. So I want to ask you, when was it that you knew that this was your calling?
Let me start by saying thank you for coming. And I appreciate you coming to do this. And I'm a restaurant guy, through and through. It's all I've ever done. I didn't really choose this business. This business chose me. So I've always been a cook. I've always been passionate in the kitchen. So I knew at a very young age, maybe 15 or 16, that this is probably where I belong. It took me a while to get here, where I am, but I knew at a young age that this was my passion and what I enjoyed doing.
I got you. And I know you've spent a lot of time in the kitchen. Where'd you get your start?
Man, I started all over town, but I at 16, I started in working Demi's Market, slanging pizzas at a Demi's
Everybody knows
Market.
that, but I know that place very well.
Yes, so that's a little place in Ybor. It's a Tampa family. It was a staple, like a late night pizza staple. Sure. And so it's kind of where I got my first commercial kitchen taste, was there. I've always cooked with my family at home and did that stuff, but that was my first kind of being on the line, per se.
So how'd you know that a fish camp concept was going to work for you?
I knew that if you wanted a good grouper sandwich, and not great, but a good one at the time, you had to drive over any one of the bridges to access a decent grouper sandwich. So essentially, I knew that if I could produce a good grouper sandwich every single time and put it in South Tampa, I could eliminate some of that back and forth travel to go over there and get a grouper sandwich. You could just come here and grab it from me. And that's kind of what happened here.
So what's been the best part of making the transition from being a cook to being a business owner?
That's a great question. And to me, it's really being able to service the community. As a cook, I was limited on things that I could do, things that I could be involved in. As the owner, I can get involved in a lot more stuff, be more of a community activist, be here to produce meals for the community, really put my best foot forward, and show my abilities off at what I do.
Nice. And as delicious as that grouper sandwich that I had today that you made was, I think it's the best one I've ever had, literally. You have an amazing concept here. You have an amazing brand. Your personality is awesome. So I think you do belong out in front and not necessarily in the back making sandwiches.
I appreciate you for that, and it's a big deal for us, right? For us cooks, because I'm really a cook at the end of the day, right? I'm a businessman as well, but the reason that this works is because I'm a cook. First, right? First and foremost, I'm a cook. Second, I'm a businessman, right? Because I think that's where the breakdown in this business happens, is that some people try to get in the restaurant business that maybe might not belong in that business, right? And some people completely understand this business and they thrive in the business. So that's a difference. I'm a true to heart restaurant person.
Dan, I remember something you told me years ago when you were already having some success, but hadn't had the growth that you have had in recent years, was that you just focus on having quality product that you continue to put out. And I think it speaks for itself. And the fact that you have a long line in here every single day is proof of that.
It's a standard, right? So it's a standard. And I knew that if I set my standard high from the very beginning, we'd be successful. And that's just what we do.
And we're a couple fishermen, so we grew up kind of snobby when it comes to our seafood. And you're just like me, always eating fresh fish with your family, being on the water with your grandfather. Can you tell us a little bit about him and what it was like growing up in a fishing family?
Yeah, so I'm actually a fifth generation Tampanian, and my grandfather they called him the snook slayer. He was like the snook fisherman of Ballast Point Pier, and the Air Force Base. He wasn't the most friendliest guy in the world. Nice guy, but not the most friendliest. Little salty. Loved to fish though, right? That's where his heart was. So I remember as a kid just getting dropped off at the pier with my grandfather and spending hours and hours fishing and then bringing home that fish and my abuela or my mom, my grandfather would fillet it out, but then my mother or my grandmother would really turn that fish into something special.
So if you could give one piece of advice to someone like yourself who's passionate about food, passionate about cooking, and has the dream of opening up a restaurant, what would that piece of advice be?
The real answer is this. Essentially, in my restaurant, if I had to, I could work every job in this building right now. If I had to work on the line, I could work on the line. If I had to work on the register, I could work on the register. If I had to go prep food, I'd go prep food. So understand that when you want to be a restaurant person or you want to open a restaurant, you have to be able to do all of that. You have to be able to essentially, if a cook doesn't show up one day, you have to be able to fill that position. If a prep cook doesn't show up that day, you have to be able to fill that position. And when I mean fill it, I mean you come in and you do that work, right? So sometimes if you're not a restaurant person, that might be a difficult task for you.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
Here's the real truth of this situation, and I've seen it before in other kitchens, right? Nobody can take me hostage. Nobody. My prep cook, my main cook, my hostess, you can't take me hostage. You wanna know why? Because I can do that job. I can come in and do that job. I can do your job. So basically I can fire anybody in here that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it's not gonna affect me on my day-to-day operations. I'll come in, I'm gonna crank. I crank on the grill, crank on the register, I crank wherever, it doesn't matter. So people that aren't restaurant people get held hostage by their employees, right? So now you got a cook, right? You got a great cook, but he doesn't want his 16 bucks an hour. Now he wants 25 an hour because he knows how much money you're making, right? So what happens? He says, "Give me the 25," right? And you say no as an accountant.
The business
right?
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you say, "No, I'm not paying that." He says, "Okay." He grabs his coat and he leaves. And what happens tomorrow?
Quality of the food goes down.
It's in the tank, right? So that's what
Absolutely.
That's it. That's the real deal.
Yeah, that great answer. And that reminds me of this book I just read called Relentless by Tim Grover, who was like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's athletic trainer. And he talks about the difference between a closer and a cleaner. And a cleaner can go do any job with confidence because he's put in those hours and logged in that time. And that's exactly what you're talking about
100%.
with the restaurant right now. I love that.
100%.
That's awesome. I want to thank you, Nick, and super proud to be your friend, to call you a friend, but also of the work that you've done, and how deeply you are involved in the community and how your brand is continuing to grow. I wish you nothing but continued success, and I can't wait to have a front row seat to see it all.
Hey man, likewise, and we really appreciate you guys.